"Can you make me come?" the giant mail-order bride asked the virgin cowboy. He admitted, The small rural town sat quietly between wide fields and open sky. Life there moved slowly, measured by sunrise, animal feed times, and the changing seasons. Most people knew each other by name, and strangers were noticed right away. On the edge of this town lived a man named Daniel. He was tall, strong, and worked as a cowboy on his own land. His hands were rough from years of hard work, and his days were full of routine. But his nights were quiet, often lonely. Daniel was known as a good man. He helped neighbors when fences broke, shared tools without asking for anything back, and treated animals with care. But when it came to people, especially women, he kept his distance. He spoke politely, but never much. Many thought he was simply shy. Others believed he preferred being alone. The truth was simpler and deeper. Daniel had never learned how to open his heart to someone else. He had grown up with responsibility early in life. After his parents passed away, the ranch became his duty. There was no time for friendships or relationships. He learned how to fix engines, guide cattle, and survive storms, but no one taught him how to talk about feelings or love. As years passed, he accepted this life as his fate. One evening, after a long day of work, Daniel sat at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. A letter lay open in front of him. It was from an agency that helped people find partners through legal marriage arrangements. He had contacted them months earlier, unsure if he would ever follow through. Loneliness had pushed him to try, even though doubt filled his mind. The letter explained that a woman had agreed to come and marry him. Her name was Alina. She was taller than most women he had met and came from a different country, carrying a past that was not easy. She was looking for stability, safety, and a chance to start over. Daniel read the letter again and again, feeling nervous and unsure. He wondered if he was making a mistake. In the days that followed, he cleaned the house more than usual. He fixed a broken step on the porch, painted the fence near the road, and even bought new plates for the kitchen. These small actions were his way of preparing himself, though fear stayed close. He worried he would disappoint her or say the wrong thing. The day Alina arrived, the sky was clear and bright. Daniel drove his old truck to the small airport nearby. He stood awkwardly near the entrance, holding a simple sign with her name written in careful letters. His heart beat faster with each person who walked out. Then he saw her. Alina walked through the doors with a single suitcase. She was confident in her posture, tall and noticeable, yet her eyes showed tiredness. She scanned the crowd and stopped when she saw her name. For a moment, both of them just looked at each other. Neither smiled right away. They were strangers tied together by a promise they barely understood. Daniel cleared his throat and stepped forward. He introduced himself in a quiet voice. Alina nodded and thanked him for coming. Her voice was calm, but she was clearly alert, taking in everything: the man, the place, the silence. The ride back to the ranch was quiet, broken only by polite questions about the road and weather. When they reached the ranch, Alina looked around slowly. The open land stretched far, peaceful and wide. The house was simple but clean. She said it was beautiful in its own way. Daniel felt relieved, though he did not show it. That evening, they sat across from each other at the dinner table. The food was basic but warm. They spoke carefully, like people walking on thin ice. Alina asked about the ranch, the animals, and his daily routine. Daniel answered honestly, though briefly. He listened when she spoke about her journey, her hopes, and her desire for a steady life. There was no spark, no dramatic moment, just two people trying to understand what they had stepped into. After dinner, Daniel showed her the room she would stay in. It was prepared with fresh sheets and a small lamp. He told her to rest after the long trip. Before leaving, he paused, unsure what to say. Finally, he wished her good night and closed the door softly behind him. That night, Daniel lay awake listening to the quiet sounds of the house. For the first time in years, he was not alone. But instead of comfort, his chest felt tight with worry. He wondered if he could be what she needed. He feared she might regret coming here. Alina, in her room, sat on the edge of the bed holding a photo from her past. She had taken a risk leaving everything behind. She did not know this man, but she sensed honesty in him. She noticed his nervousness and quiet nature. She wondered what kind of life they could build together. The next morning began early. Daniel followed his usual routine, feeding animals and checking fences. Alina watched from the porch, curious but respectful. When he invited her to join him, she agreed. She asked questions, listened carefully, and tried to learn. Throughout the day, small moments happened. A shared smile, a brief laugh, a silent understanding while watching the sunset. These moments did not change everything, but they planted something new. Both of them knew this was just the beginning. They stood at the edge of an unknown future, unsure but willing to try. What brought them together was not romance, but need and hope. What would keep them together was yet to be discovered. As night fell again, the ranch felt different. Not warmer yet, but less empty. Two lives had crossed paths, and though neither knew what would come next, the story had begun. If you want, I can now expand part 2 in the same style, length, and clean tone. The next few days passed slowly, like cautious footsteps on unfamiliar ground. Daniel and Alina lived under the same roof, yet each stayed inside their own quiet space. Mornings began early on the ranch. The sound of animals and the cool air did not wait for anyone to feel ready. Daniel followed his routine as he always had, but now there was someone else watching, someone new sharing the same space. Alina woke early too, even though no one asked her to. In her old life, sleeping late had never been safe. She preferred to stay alert. At first, she stayed inside the house, cleaning small corners that were already clean, arranging items on shelves, trying to feel useful. She did not want to seem lazy or unwanted. This place was her chance, and she did not want to waste it. Daniel noticed her efforts but did not know how to talk about them. He felt thankful, yet awkward. Saying thank you felt too small, but saying more felt impossible. So he nodded, offered coffee, and quietly made space for her. They ate breakfast together most mornings. The meals were simple: bread, eggs, warm drinks. Conversation stayed light. Daniel talked about the weather and work. Alina listened, then shared small details about her country, the food she missed, and the long journey she had taken. Neither asked deep questions yet. Both were afraid of crossing invisible lines. One afternoon, Alina stepped outside while Daniel was repairing a fence. She watched him work, his movements calm and careful. There was strength in the way he handled tools, but also patience. She realized that silence did not mean lack of care. He showed effort through actions, not words. She asked if she could help. Daniel hesitated, worried the work might be too much for her. When she insisted, he handed her small tasks. She surprised him by working steadily, without complaint. By the end of the day, they were both tired, but there was a shared sense of accomplishment. That evening, they sat on the porch as the sun went down. The sky turned soft shades of orange and purple. The land felt endless and quiet. Alina broke the silence by saying the quiet scared her at first, but now it felt peaceful. Daniel nodded. He had never thought of it that way. As days turned into a week, small misunderstandings appeared. Alina was used to direct talk. When something bothered her, she spoke about it. Daniel, on the other hand, stayed quiet when he felt unsure. When she asked why he avoided certain topics, he had no answer. He simply did not know how to explain himself. One evening, Alina cooked a meal from her homeland. The smell filled the house, different and unfamiliar. Daniel appreciated the effort, but he struggled to show it clearly. He ate quietly, unsure what to say. Alina mistook his silence for dislike and felt hurt. Later that night, she cleaned the kitchen with more force than needed. Daniel noticed and felt a tightness in his chest. He realized that silence could cause pain, even when there was no bad intention behind it, but knowing that did not give him the words he needed. That night both slept poorly. Alina wondered if she had made a mistake coming here. Daniel wondered if he was failing already. The next morning, Daniel surprised himself by doing something new. He waited until Alina finished breakfast and then spoke slowly, carefully. He told her he was not good with words, but he appreciated what she had done. His voice was quiet but honest. Alina listened closely. The tension eased. She smiled gently and said she understood more than he thought. From that moment, they tried a little harder. Daniel practiced speaking even when it felt uncomfortable. Alina practiced patience, giving him time instead of pressure. Progress was slow, but real. They began to learn each other's habits. Daniel learned that Alina liked to plan her days and disliked sudden changes. Alina learned that Daniel needed time alone after long work days, not because he was distant, but because he was tired in a way that went deeper than the body. One afternoon, a neighbor stopped by unexpectedly. Alina noticed how Daniel changed slightly around others, more guarded, more quiet. She stood beside him, offering support without words. Later, Daniel thanked her. This time, he meant it deeply. At night, they sometimes shared stories. Not long stories, just pieces. Alina spoke about her childhood, about responsibility and strength learned early. Daniel spoke about the ranch, about growing up too fast. These moments created a fragile bridge between them. Still, uncertainty remained. They were married, but the meaning of that word felt heavy and unclear. Alina wondered what Daniel expected from her. Daniel wondered what kind of husband he was supposed to be. Neither asked directly. One evening, rain fell hard against the roof. Power went out briefly, leaving the house quiet and dark. They sat together at the table with a small light between them. In that stillness, the weight of unspoken questions filled the room. Alina looked at Daniel and saw not coldness but fear. Daniel looked at Alina and saw not pressure but confusion mixed with hope. Both realized something important. They were not enemies, and they were not strangers anymore. They were two people learning how to stand in the same space without hiding. Before going to bed, Alina thanked Daniel for trying. The word trying stayed with him. For the first time, he believed that effort might be enough to begin with. As the rain slowed outside, the house felt less tense. Nothing was solved, but something had shifted. Trust was not complete, but it had started. Both knew harder conversations were ahead. Questions they could not avoid forever waited in the silence. But for now, they had chosen patience over fear. The second part of their shared life ended not with answers, but with understanding growing quietly, like roots forming beneath the ground, unseen, but strong enough to hold what would come next. If you want, I can now expand part 3 in the same length, tone, and clean style. The third phase of their life together began with a quiet tension that neither of them could ignore anymore. The house felt calm on the surface, but underneath, many thoughts remained unspoken. Daniel and Alina had grown more comfortable with each other's presence, yet an invisible wall still stood between them. It was built from fear, uncertainty, and questions neither knew how to ask. Daniel woke earlier than usual one morning. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at his hands. They were strong hands, used to hard work, but they trembled slightly when he thought about personal matters. He knew that avoiding the truth would only make things worse. Alina deserved honesty, even if it made him uncomfortable. Alina, too, felt the weight of unanswered questions. She respected Daniel's quiet nature, but she needed clarity. Her past had taught her that silence could hide problems that grew bigger with time. She did not want to push him, yet she could not keep pretending everything was fine. That evening, after a long day, they found themselves sitting together without distractions. No work waited, no noise filled the room, just the soft light and the sound of the wind outside. It felt like the right moment, though both felt nervous. Alina spoke first. Her voice was calm but serious. She told Daniel that she appreciated his kindness and effort, but she needed to understand him better. She asked what he was afraid of and what he expected from their life together. Her words were not sharp. They were honest. Daniel felt his chest tighten. For a moment, he thought about staying silent, about giving short answers, but something inside him shifted. He realized that if he did not speak now, he might never find the courage again. He took a deep breath and began slowly. He told her about his past, about growing up without guidance in matters of the heart. He explained that while he knew how to care for land and animals, he had never learned how to be close to someone. He admitted that he feared disappointing her, not because he did not care, but because he cared too much. Alina listened without interrupting. She watched his face, his struggle to find words. She saw sincerity, not weakness. When he finished, there was a long silence. Daniel waited for judgment or disappointment. Instead, Alina spoke gently. She told him that she had faced her own fears coming here. She admitted that her confidence sometimes hid uncertainty. She had expected challenges, but she did not expect honesty to feel this heavy and real. She thanked him for trusting her with the truth. That conversation changed something between them. It did not solve every issue, but it broke the wall of silence. For the first time, they both felt seen. In the days that followed, their interaction softened. They spoke more openly, even about small things. Daniel practiced sharing his thoughts instead of keeping them locked inside. Alina learned to give him space when he needed it, without feeling rejected. They worked together more often. While repairing equipment or caring for animals, they talked about everyday matters and deeper feelings. Daniel learned that talking did not have to be perfect to be meaningful. Alina learned that patience could bring understanding faster than pressure. One afternoon, Daniel made a mistake while fixing a piece of equipment. Normally, he would have blamed himself silently. This time, he laughed lightly and accepted Alina's help. It was a small moment, but it showed growth. Alina noticed changes in herself too. She became less guarded, more willing to trust the slow process. She stopped comparing their relationship to others she had seen or imagined. She focused on what was real in front of her. Still, moments of doubt returned now and then. Some nights Daniel lay awake wondering if he would ever feel fully confident. Alina sometimes questioned whether their differences were too great, but when morning came, they chose to keep trying. One evening, they shared a simple meal and talked about the future. Not detailed plans, just ideas. Daniel spoke about improving the ranch, making it more welcoming. Alina spoke about learning new skills and building a life that felt stable and meaningful. There was no rush, no pressure, just two people slowly shaping a shared path. As weeks passed, trust deepened. They began to rely on each other naturally. When Daniel felt overwhelmed, Alina noticed and offered support. When Alina felt homesick, Daniel listened, even when he did not know what to say. Their bond grew from honesty, not from perfect moments. It was built through effort, patience, and respect. By the end of this phase, they both understood something important. They were not defined by their fears or pasts. They were defined by their willingness to face them together. The house felt warmer now, not because anything dramatic had changed, but because understanding had replaced silence. They knew challenges still lay ahead, but they also knew they were no longer facing them alone. This part of their story closed with a quiet sense of hope, stronger than before and rooted in truth. Life on the ranch entered a steadier rhythm during this time, but steadiness did not mean ease. Daniel and Alina had learned to speak more honestly, yet learning how to live as a real partnership required more than words. It required patience in moments when patience felt thin, and trust when doubt tried to return. Each morning, they worked side by side more often than before. Alina no longer felt like a guest. She learned how to care for the animals, how to move carefully through the wide land, and how to respect the quiet rules of ranch life. Daniel watched her grow more confident with each passing day. He admired her strength, not just in work, but in how she faced challenges without turning away. Still, Daniel carried pressure inside himself. He believed he needed to be stronger, more certain, more prepared for everything. When things went wrong, he blamed himself first. A broken water pipe one afternoon tested him deeply. Water flooded part of the field and the repair took hours. Daniel worked without stopping, frustration heavy in his movements. Elena noticed and brought him water, then stayed nearby. She did not give advice unless asked. Her quiet presence helped more than words. When the work was finally done, Daniel sat down, exhausted. He admitted he felt like he always needed to prove himself. Elena told him softly that he did not need to prove anything to her. That moment stayed with him. As days passed, neighbors became more present. Some were curious, others kind, a few distant. Elena sensed unspoken judgment from time to time. Being new, different, and part of an unusual marriage drew attention. Daniel worried this would make her uncomfortable, but Elena surprised him again. She greeted people calmly and stood with confidence. She did not ask Daniel to defend her, but knowing he stood beside her gave her strength. One afternoon, a local gathering took place near town. Daniel hesitated to attend. He avoided crowds and attention. Elena encouraged him gently, saying they did not have to stay long. When they arrived, Daniel felt every eye on them, though most people were polite. Elena stayed close, her presence grounding him. They did not speak much at the gathering, but they did not need to. When they left, Daniel admitted it was difficult for him. Elena thanked him for trying. He realized that courage did not always look loud or bold. Sometimes it looked like simply showing up. At home, they found comfort in small routines. Evening walks near the fields, quiet meals, shared work plans for the next day. They laughed more easily now. Not loud laughter, but warm, natural moments that felt real. Yet, deeper fears still waited beneath the surface. Daniel struggled with the idea of closeness and expectations. He worried about doing things wrong, about misunderstanding needs he could not name. Elena sensed this and chose care over pressure. She focused on building emotional safety first. One night when the wind howled loudly outside, Daniel admitted he felt afraid of failing in ways he could not explain. Elena listened and placed her hand near his, not forcing contact, just offering reassurance. She told him that trust grew step by step, not all at once. He felt relief hearing that. Elena faced her own struggles too. Some nights, memories of her past made sleep difficult. She missed familiar sounds, familiar places. Daniel noticed and asked if she wanted to talk. Sometimes she did. Sometimes she only wanted quiet company. Daniel learned to respect both. A difficult moment came when Elena fell ill from exhaustion. She had pushed herself too hard, trying to adapt quickly. Daniel felt guilt, thinking he had asked too much of her. He took over her tasks and stayed close, making sure she rested. Elena saw his care and felt safe in a way she had not felt in a long time. During her recovery, they talked more deeply about balance. Elena admitted she tried too hard to be perfect. Daniel admitted he tried too hard to be strong. They laughed softly at how similar they were in that way. As weeks turned into months, the ranch felt like shared ground, not just Daniel's place anymore. Decisions were discussed, not assumed. Plans were made together. Disagreements happened too, but they were handled with more calm than before. One evening, after finishing work, they watched the stars quietly. Daniel spoke about how the land had once felt like a shield, protecting him from the world. Now, he said, it felt like a place meant to be shared. Elena smiled, understanding the weight of his words. They were not rushing toward anything. They were building something steady, something honest. Emotional closeness grew naturally, without force. Trust became the foundation. This phase of their journey was not dramatic, but it was important. It was where habits formed, where respect deepened, and where fear slowly lost its hold. They both knew that the future would still bring challenges. Life always did. But now, when they looked ahead, they did not see it alone. By the end of this part of their story, the bond between them felt stronger and calmer. Not perfect, not complete but real. And sometimes, real was more than enough to keep going forward together. The final phase of their journey did not begin with a single event. It began quietly, almost unnoticed, in the way both Daniel and Alina started thinking in terms of we instead of I. The ranch, once a place of isolation, had slowly become a shared life built through patience, honesty, and daily effort. The seasons began to change. The air grew cooler, and the land showed signs of a new cycle. Daniel noticed how Alina now moved through the house and fields with confidence. She no longer hesitated or asked permission for every small thing. She belonged there, not by force, but by choice and care. Daniel himself had changed more than he realized. He still spoke softly and valued silence, but he no longer used it to hide. When something worried him, he tried to say it. When he felt unsure, he allowed himself to be human instead of strong all the time. This shift made life lighter. One morning, they worked together to prepare the ranch for colder days ahead. Repairs, planning, and organizing filled the hours. They moved in quiet harmony, understanding each other's rhythm without needing many words. Alina noticed how Daniel trusted her judgment now. That trust meant more to her than any promise. Neighbors also began to see the difference. What once felt like curiosity or doubt slowly turned into acceptance. People greeted Alina by name. Some asked her advice. Daniel noticed and felt pride, not ownership but respect. She had earned her place through kindness and strength. There were still difficult days. A sudden storm damaged part of the property, forcing long hours of repair. Fatigue tested their patience. Small disagreements appeared, as they always do between people sharing real life. But unlike before, they faced problems together instead of retreating into silence. One evening, after a long day, Daniel apologized for snapping over something small. It surprised Alina. He had never been quick to apologize before. She accepted it without hesitation. That moment showed how far they had come. As winter approached, Alina suggested making changes to the house to feel warmer and more welcoming. Daniel agreed. They planned together, choosing simple improvements that reflected both of them. Each change felt like another step toward a future that was no longer uncertain. During quieter nights, they spoke about meaning. Not dreams filled with pressure, but hopes shaped by reality. Daniel spoke about wanting the ranch to remain a place of care and honesty. Alina spoke about wanting stability and respect, something she could build and protect. There was no grand promise made, no dramatic declaration. Instead, there was steady commitment shown through actions, sharing work, sharing rest, sharing responsibility. One night, Alina became ill again, though less severe than before. Daniel stayed near, calm but attentive. He had learned how to care without panic. Alina realized then that safety did not come from perfection, but from consistency. When she recovered, she thanked him for being there. Daniel simply said he wanted to be. That simple statement carried more truth than many words. As time passed, the ranch no longer felt like a temporary solution for either of them. It felt like home, not because everything was easy, but because it was honest. They began planning further ahead, small goals, manageable steps, nothing rushed, nothing forced. Just life moving forward. One afternoon, while walking along the fields, Alina mentioned how different her life felt compared to when she first arrived. Daniel listened quietly. She said she did not regret coming, even though it had been hard. Daniel nodded and said he was glad she stayed. That exchange stayed with them both. The bond they had built was not loud or dramatic. It was grounded. It grew through shared effort, respect, and understanding. They did not try to change each other into something else. They accepted growth where it came naturally. Daniel no longer felt the need to measure himself against imagined expectations. Alina no longer felt the need to control every outcome. They met in the middle, where trust lived. As the final weeks of this phase passed, life continued with its usual demands. Work, weather, and routine filled the days. But beneath it all was a quiet confidence that had not existed before. They had faced fear, silence, misunderstanding, and doubt. Not perfectly, but honestly. And that honesty became the strongest part of their connection. The story did not end with a perfect picture. It ended with something better, a real partnership shaped by patience and choice. Daniel stood one evening at the edge of the land, watching the sky darken. Elena joined him without being called. They stood side by side, comfortable in the quiet. No expectations, no pressure, just two people who had chosen to keep going together. And that choice, repeated every day, became the true foundation of their life forward.